Welcome aboard, Captain.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, sir.
Thanks.
There's a rainbow round my shoulder.
In Funny Man tomorrow at 9, Bobby Stobbart takes the stage and a willing hand.
The sun shines bright, the world's all right, 'cause I'm in love. Very good. We might have a great future together. What say, hey?
I like that man. He's got style. He's fast. He's an artist.
But my baby don't love nobody but me. Nobody but me. You are absolutely wonderful. Absolutely marvelous.
That room is full of pimps and tarts. And that includes your sister.
The Funny Man airs his feelings tomorrow at 9 on ITV.
And now an advertisement for Lion's new Mallorca slice by Mark Frost of Hinckley.
I've come to tell you my problem with Lion's new Mallorca slice. Sultana, cherry and pastry cake. It really does taste nice. But I've got this friend called Desmond who loves it and keeps trying to grab it. So I'd better eat it ever so fast. Because it's too good for a rabbit. Go away, Desmond.
People love Lion's cakes. Have you been bitten by lions?
Someone's going to have a lovely start to their holiday. When will they realise? When they stop for petrol and can't pay, or lunch? It's the only way they'll ever learn to take City Core traveller's checks.
Whatever else you take on holiday, don't take risks. Take City Core refundable traveller's checks. The taste that dreams are made of. Orange cream, shortcake, dairy milk chocolate. Viscount tastes like a dream. There's a place in every day for dreaming. And Viscount tastes like a dream.
Come and talk to the Midland. Come and talk to the listening bank. Talk about your savings plan to make the most of weekly pay. How to use a checkbook, buying gear the easy way. How to stash a bit away. People have problems. Over the years, the Midland Bank has very good ears. And it hears. Come and talk to the Midland. Come and talk to the listening bank.
The Valor Vanguard gas fire, 4 times cheaper to run than an electric fire. Now at our biggest London stock is North Thames Gas. £25 introductory discounts and interest-free credit.
Some small dogs are such fussy eaters. Normally the only meat they enjoy is fresh, but Mr. Dog is specially made for small dogs. It's full of good things like finely chopped beef, tempting liver, juicy kidney. If your dog only enjoys fresh meat, give him Mr. Dog. Makes even a small dog eager to eat.
You don't have to win races to put milk first.
Hi, Mum.
I love my Philips microwave because it cooks so fast. Frankfurt is in 2 minutes.
Hello. Hi, Dad.
Chili con carne straight from the freezer in 9.
But I love my Philips because it cooks so well. Puddings are light, jams are easy, and vegetables and fish keep all their natural taste and texture. I've been trying up my Philips cookbook.
Philips makes sense of cooking with microwave. Philips, simply years ahead.
Once upon a time, Gerald Murphy was the political prince of Swansea.
Well, I'll challenge you if you do good.
I don't think... In 1976, Gerald Murphy was sentenced to 2 years' imprisonment for corruption. His rise to political power is a classic of British provincial political life. At the same time, his fall exhibits the political struggle at its most harsh. So this isn't just a story of one man's life, but almost a moral fable of our time, a study of democracy in action, in tooth and claw.
And did corruptly receive a look at corruption in political life this evening at 10:30 on ITV.
This is Thames from London. The time is 10 o'clock at ITN. Alistair Burnett and Sandy Gall.
Mr. Silkin gets the OK to run for deputy leader. Lord Soames is to see the civil service strikers again. The IRA hunger striker who's called it off. Nick Faldo says, if I'm fined, I won't play here again. And Liverpool do it in Paris. Good evening. Mr. John Silkin, the third man in the election for Labour's deputy leadership, got the approval of his local constituency party at Deptford in South London tonight. There'd been doubts about his taking on Mr. Healy and Mr. Benn, but he came out smiling. Mr. Benn had a success at Labour's national executive today with a resolution to discourage local Labour parties from just adopting their present MP again. He won by 15 votes to 9. Among the 9, Mr. Foote and Mr. Healy. Here's our political editor, Julian Havland, from Mr. Silkin's meeting at Deptford.
Well, Mr. John Silkin just came out of the meeting. Unhappily, didn't come quite as far as our cameras. He had some news which he gave inside. And what's happened is his party at Deptford have decided that they will canvass the views. They've held an exhaustive ballot to get the views of every party member on whom they should support for the deputy leadership and how they should vote. Meanwhile, they say, in what looks like a rather qualified endorsement, they declare their confidence in Mr. John Silkin and they wish him well in his campaign. Mr. Silkin says he's entirely pleased with that, he's happy with that, he thinks they will in the end support him, and he says that considering we don't yet know who all the candidates for deputy leadership will be, that's the only reasonable course his local party will take, could have taken. So he doesn't seem to have had much trouble in the end. Some members of his management committee who wanted Mr. Benn, who do want Mr. Benn to win the deputy leadership and may still press for him to be supported by the deputy party, did not want the votes of the left to be split on the first ballot. And that's what the row was about. But they seem to have been a small minority, or if they were more, Mr. Silkin effectively won the argument. His argument was that when the row about the leadership was taking place last autumn, they actually made him here promise to stand as soon as there were new rules giving the party beyond Parliament, the mass party, constituency parties and trade unionists, a share in the election for leader and deputy leader. So now that those new rules have come into force, Mr. Silkin argued that he was only doing what the party asked him to do last autumn. The point then, though, is they were afraid that by standing in the leadership contest, he would prevent Mr. Michael Foot winning. What they're now afraid of is that he will secure Mr. Dennis Healy in the deputy leadership of the party and do down Mr. Benn. And the struggle to promote Mr. Benn on the one hand or to do him down is continuing to dominate everything the Labour Party does. It did so again this morning at the meeting of the National Executive Committee. Mr. Benn and his friends won a little bit of ground by insisting that local parties be reminded that they're not, in the view of the NEC, properly applying the rules for reselection. This is the device which, more than anything else, has advanced Mr. Benn's power in the Labour Party. It's a device to make sure that every sitting MP is challenged once in every Parliament. The idea was to make sure that no sitting MP should have a clear run. But local parties who are pleased with the way their local MP performs have been getting round the rules, in the view of Mr. Benn and his friends, by nominating only a single person, that is the sitting MP, for choice, and so avoiding effectively any contest. Well, what Mr. Benn and his friends decided today, against Mr. Foot and Mr. Healy's opposition, was that a circular would go to all Labour parties telling them that they weren't playing fair. Well, the local parties seem to know exactly what the rules are, and this remonstrance by Mr. Benn and the left may not get them very far. It looks as if the Labour Party, local parties know exactly what the rules are and intend to go on playing by them. Now from Deputy Town Hall, back to the studio.
The government have agreed to new talks with the civil service unions over their 12-week pay dispute. Lord Soames, the minister in charge of the civil service, said in a letter to the 9 unions that he wanted to meet them as quickly as possible to see whether there's a way of resolving the dispute. The unions, who yesterday threatened to step up their strike campaign unless talks took place before June the 8th, will give Lord Soames an answer after meeting tomorrow. Charles Smith, our industrial editor, has the details.
There's a cat-and-mouse game going on in Whitehall tonight to try to end this damaging dispute without either side being seen as the loser. There's little doubt both want peace, although neither wants to be seen to be giving in. Yesterday, the civil servants leader, Mr. Bill Kendall, said they'd only talk to the government if those talks included meaningful discussion on their 15% pay claim for this year. Tonight, Lord Soames, in his letter to Mr. Kendall, studiously failed to make any reference to preconditions or whether he'd be prepared to talk about this year's 7% offer at all. Well, if and when the two sides do get together again, probably not before Monday, both will go into the talks feeling they've got the upper hand. The unions because the government has agreed to talk to them so quickly after their ultimatum, the government because the unions didn't go the whole hog yesterday by calling an all-out strike. These strikes are hurting everyone. The government in billions of lost or at least deferred tax revenue, the unions in millions of pounds of strike pay to their members. The feeling tonight is that these latest talks might be the last chance both sides have of getting out of the impasse they're in now.
One of the IRA hunger strikers has called off his fast after 14 days. Brendan McLaughlin, serving 12 years for possessing arms, is the first prisoner to give up in the current campaign. 4 Republicans have starved themselves to death since the protest started on the 1st of March. But McLaughlin has a perforated ulcer, and he was moved from the Maze prison to an outside hospital a week ago with internal bleeding. Yesterday he decided he would accept medical treatment, but doctors told him he'd little chance if he didn't eat. Tonight the H Block Committee said to have continued in his critical condition would have meant almost certain death before the effects of a long hunger strike had built up pressure to break the British government's intransigence. In Belfast tonight, police are testing a rocket launcher found in a car last night to see if it was the weapon used to kill a policeman 2 weeks ago. Arms have also been discovered at the East Belfast headquarters of the Protestant paramilitary organisation, the UDA. Jeremy Hand sends this report from Belfast.
When the police tried to stop this car off the Republican Falls Road, they knew there was a wanted man inside. The passenger was shot as he tried to escape after it crashed, and he's now seriously ill in hospital. But still inside the car was the Russian-made rocket grenade launcher the RUC believe has been used twice in Belfast in the last few days killing one policeman. It was primed and ready for use when captured. A pistol and an Armalite rifle were also in the car, along with a quantity of ammunition, including some armour-piercing shells. Then this morning, the police struck again. They raided the East Belfast headquarters of the loyalist paramilitary group, the Ulster Defence Association, searching for weapons. UDA leader Andy Tirry and 2 other men were taken away for questioning, but were released after the police had difficulty in finding out who was responsible for what was found. The haul included this Thompson submachine gun and 6 homemade Sten guns. There was also a large amount of ammunition, all cleverly concealed inside the building. So far, no charges have been brought in connection with either arms find. Jeremy Hands, News at 10, Belfast.
There were funerals in Northern Ireland and in England today of soldiers killed by the IRA. At Mackerafelt in County Londonderry, a part-time UDR private, Alan Ritchie, was buried. He was ambushed by gunmen on Monday. During the service, the Reverend Selwood Graham said the hunger strikers were obscene blackmailers. Violence would end only when the masterminds of terrorism were no longer revered, he said. In Oxfordshire, the funeral was for Rifleman Michael Bagshaw of the Royal Green Jackets, one of the 5 soldiers blown up in South Armagh. Carol Barnes reports.
In complete silence, the coffin was slowly carried into the little church at Abingdon, which not so long ago was mourning its former MP, Airy Neve, also murdered in a bomb blast. Green Jackets of Rifleman Bagshaw's own 1st Regiment were the pallbearers. The Northern Ireland Secretary, Mr. Atkins, sent a wreath. The Army chaplain said if the IRA thought it could weaken the Army's resolve by murder, it was mistaken. Rifleman Bagshaw had always wanted to be a soldier, his parents said, and he'd often made light of his tours of duty in Northern Ireland. It's what we're trained to do, he'd say. But today his parents remained composed as they saw their son's coffin buried, knowing he would have been home from his 4th tour in a few days' time. And so the Green Jackets, who've seen more service in Northern Ireland than any other regiment, bury another of their dead, and his family lament what they've called the complete waste of his life. Carol Barnes, News at 10, Abingdon in Oxfordshire.
Now, unusual pictures and words about Northern Ireland which are not likely to be shown on foreign television. At the Maze prison, the IRA diehards stopped their dirty protest in March, though most of the world thinks it's going on. The IRA now wash themselves, go to the lavatory and don't smear the walls. Last year, prisoners there took educational courses for 31 A-level subjects, 160 O-levels and 80 Royal Society of Art subjects. There are 21 Open University students and 1 prisoner has graduated with a BA degree. Every evening they have 3 hours to mix and talk and play table tennis, snooker, darts and cards, more than they'd get in England or the Republic. They can do that all day at weekends. The IRA prisoners on hunger strike say they want 5 concessions. First, to wear their own clothes. They reject the prison cardigan and trousers, but their choice of clothes could be IRA uniforms. They already hold parades every morning. Second, they want to associate freely with other prisoners, but the Northern Ireland office says that's likely to mean holding classes in terrorist techniques. Third, they don't want to do ordinary prison work, but education and physical exercise already count as jobs. Fourth, they want more mail and visits. They can send 8 free letters a month now and 3 letters a week that they pay the stamps for. They can get an equal number and a weekly parcel. There are 4 30-minute visits a week. Fifth, they want time off their sentences for good behavior. They lose 1 day's remission for each day they break the rules. Outside the IRA areas, life goes on pretty normally. Last year there were 76 deaths because of violence. There were 229 deaths on the roads. This year there have been 37 deaths because of violence. There have been 77 deaths on the roads. But the success of the diehards on both sides in the local elections suggests that some political solutions have become much less likely to be adopted. First, the strong vote for the Reverend Ian Paisley means the northern Protestants are even less likely to be persuaded to go into the south. Second, the vote for the Republicans, the rejection of Mr. Jerry Fitt, the harassing of Mr. Paddy Devlin, mean the rejection of power sharing and the rejection of an independent Northern Ireland run by the Protestants. Third, the realization that the 2 communities have moved further apart means that keeping things as they are is even more under attack. Mrs. Thatcher and Mr. Hawkey, the Southern Prime Minister, are thought to have a 4th idea, Northern Ireland running its own affairs in a federal Ireland, which in turn would be closer to Britain. But the Ulster elections have made that look less likely, And with Southern Ireland having its own general election now, and the IRA sympathisers going to stand there, it may become even more distant.
A former detective on the Yorkshire Ripper Squad who tried to sell information to the press was fined £750 by magistrates at Bradford in West Yorkshire today. Ex-Detective Sergeant Edward Dodsworth pleaded guilty to the unauthorised communication of information contrary to the Official Secrets Act. The prosecution said Dodsworth had named a well-known local man, a nationally known figure, and a nationally known actor who'd been involved in the Ripper inquiries. Dodsworth resigned from the police force in January. Earlier, he'd been suspended for what the police called feckless financial behaviour.
In South Africa, there's increasing and serious black opposition to the Apartheid government. A special report coming next. Plus, Nick Faldo tells British Golf, "If I'm fined, I go."
When you fly British Airways 747 Club, there are one or two differences you just can't help noticing. Drinks, for instance, at no extra charge. And music. And films. A bigger seat with just 9 abreast, which in Super Club to the USA becomes a mere 6 abreast, and converts into the widest airline seat in the world. More legroom too. Slipperettes, eye shades, and a choice of main courses. British Airways 747 Club and Super Club. You can't help noticing the difference.
As supermarkets get bigger and more impersonal, shopping's becoming more and more of a chore. Which is why at most Liptons you'll find revolutionary retail methods at the cheese counter. First, the cheese you want is instantaneously selected. Then the exact amount is cut just the way you want it. And it's so efficient that your cheese is not just fresher, it's cheaper. Meet the Lipton's cheese cutter.
Happy?
At Lipton's, if you're happy, we're happy.
At times like this, wouldn't you love to have soap and water with you? Instant clean-ups anywhere. Wet Ones especially moistened cloth, strong enough to clean and refresh.
You wanna wash and there's nowhere to wash. Wet Ones.
From Sterling Health.
This Samsonite is one of the strongest suitcases in the world. Samsonite, the strength you need to travel.
South African police fired tear gas and baton-charged coloured schoolchildren near Johannesburg today after 150 of them had barricaded themselves in the school and pelted the police with stones and bottles. 31 were arrested and several injured. It was the latest flare-up in a wave of sabotage and demonstrations protesting against the official celebrations on Sunday of South Africa's 20 years as a republic. The country has also been experiencing considerable labour unrest recently. Today, 1,600 gold mine workers were sacked after striking for higher wages and shorter shifts. Our reporter Peter Sharp has been looking into the reasons behind this labour unrest.
Although black and coloured workers make up 80% of South Africa's labour force, it was only 2 years ago that they were first allowed to join unions and negotiate their own pay awards. Since then, trade union members like these Leyland car workers on strike near Cape Town have begun to flex their muscles. Only 3% of black workers belong to trade unions, but they have already mounted more than 250 strikes, costing South African industry nearly £700 million in lost production in the last 16 months alone. As is usual in labour disputes in South Africa, the police are never far away. Dozens of union leaders and members have been arrested or detained without trial in the Eastern Cape area. These Leyland workers are members of a registered trade union, one that has been approved by the government, and as a result their funds are closely monitored. They can't engage in any political activities, and their grievance procedure is so complicated and cumbersome that it's virtually impossible to carry out a legal strike. Within days, the 2,000 workers were locked out and holding a protest rally at a nearby cinema. Leyland, meanwhile, is free to hire new staff from the area's vast pool of unemployed labour. But it is the port of East London that has become the real centre of labour unrest in South Africa. It is here that the unregistered unions are now taking on employers on a scale unmatched elsewhere in the country, forcing them to recognise their organisations. When Rowntree's South African subsidiary dismissed 500 members of the South African Allied Workers Union following a work stoppage in February, it resulted in a boycott of their goods and enormous black support for the workers. Rowntree quickly hired new staff and accused the union of being politically motivated. But perhaps the main reason why the government is opposed to the development of black trade unions is the realization that to give blacks a democratic voice on the shop floor will only make them more aware of the appalling inequalities that exist under apartheid outside the factory gates. Quite simply, the black trade union movement, even in its infancy, represents the greatest threat yet seen to the government's racial policies in South Africa. Peter Sharp, News at 10, East London, South Africa.
The American Special Envoy in the Middle East, Mr. Philip Habeeb, left Israel for Washington today to report to President Reagan. He's been trying to resolve the Syrian-Israeli missile crisis, so far without success. He's due back next week. He met the Israeli Prime Minister before flying out, and afterwards Mr. Begin had this to say.
For the time being, I must tell you the truth. The diplomatic effort did not bring results. Repeat, did not bear fruit. But that does not mean that any one of us lost hope that in the future there will be a different situation, and ultimately the diplomatic effort will indeed bring the desirable results.
President Reagan has repeated his campaign pledge that he'll negotiate arms reductions with the Soviet Union only from a position of strength. Addressing cadets at the West Point Military Academy, Mr. Reagan spoke of the still unratified SALT II arms limitation treaty, which he regards as unacceptable.
No nation that placed its faith in parchment or paper, while at the same time it gave up its protective hardware, ever lasted long enough to write many pages in history. Now, this is not to say that we shouldn't seek treaties and understandings and even mutual reduction of strategic weapons. The search for peace must go on, but we have a better chance of finding it if we maintain our strength while we're searching.
Britain is holding trade talks with the Soviet Union in London, the first time since Soviet troops went into Afghanistan. The Trade Minister, Mr. Cecil Parkinson, led a delegation of British businessmen. And our diplomatic editor, Michael Brunson, was there too.
These get-togethers used to be annual events, but last year's meeting, which should have been held in Moscow last May, was cancelled because of the Russian invasion of Afghanistan in December '79. But now it's back to business over the coffee and biscuits. Why?
We do carry on trade. We have carried on trade with the Russians, but we have strengthened the rules so that we don't trade at all in goods of strategic significance, and also we don't give preferential credit anymore. But normal business has carried on.
The pressure has come from British firms who've seen business with the Soviet Union actually fall in real terms over the past 2 years. No new major contracts at all were signed last year, though the French and the Germans are doing very good business. The French, for example, captured a £100 million plus contract for offshore drilling, which 3 British firms were after. In addition, the Russians are just starting on a new 5-year plan and getting a huge gas pipeline project underway. And British firms, desperate for business, want in. So, constantly repeating that you don't cut off your nose to spite your face, the British government is taking its place alongside the British businessmen at these talks. No big new contracts are expected to be signed as a result of them. The general intention is to warm up once again Anglo-Soviet trade relations. Michael Brunson, News at 10 at Church House, Westminster.
The Soviet government has been showing its citizens its view of what's happening in Afghanistan. Fighting is shown, Afghan government versus guerrillas. But there's no mention of engagements involving Soviet troops, the size of the Red Army in Afghanistan, or the number of Soviet casualties. Afghan women, the film claims, are joining up and learning to become sharpshooters, but the party line is that everything is returning to normal.
A bomber crashed on the deck of the American nuclear-powered aircraft carrier Nimitz, killing 14 people and injuring 45. The plane, an EA-6B, crashed on landing on the Nimitz 60 miles off Jacksonville in Florida. 10 other aircraft on the deck were either destroyed or badly damaged. The Nimitz, which is nearly a quarter of a mile long, is now heading for its home port, Norfolk, Virginia. The accident did not damage the carrier's nuclear engines or navigational equipment.
In France, the new government of President François Mitterrand has announced sweeping economic measures to boost the economy and help the government in the general elections next month. The Prime Minister, Pierre Mauroy, said £500 million would be spent on public works, including housing and telecommunications, and bigger family allowances. Britain's PGA champion, Nick Faldo, has threatened to pull out of European golf because of a fine for slow play earlier this week. He was fined £50 after the final round of the PGA at Ganton, which he won. But he says he won't pay, and he's going to appeal. He said play was slow, largely because of the uncontrolled crowds. Our sports correspondent, Ian Edwards, asked him if he was angry about the PGA decision.
Well, I said that they can push us too far, you know, which is probably true. I mean, in America, the players are treated very well. They form their circle, but if you treat the players well, they play well, and then that promotes the tour. I mean, it's obviously the best way. I think over here we don't quite, we start with coming in the other way, in a semicircle to that, you know. Look after the tournament first before the players, or TV and this sort of thing.
Well, do you think the issue could go so far as to make you pull out of the European tour?
Well, yeah, I certainly no plans of that. I mean, England's home. This is the tour I want to play. I want to play in America also. You know, obviously want to do very well over here. I want to be the best player we've had.
But you want to be fairly treated above all.
Right, yeah, there's no harm in that if we do our bit. We had such a good day. This is what's so annoying.
Liverpool have won the European Cup. The 5th successive time an English club has won it. They beat Real Madrid 1-0 in Paris tonight. There was no trouble among the fans at the match, but the Lord Mayor of Liverpool who was there says he's still going to apologise to the Mayor of Paris for disturbances before the kick-off. There were over 100 arrests, and French police say some English fans attacked bystanders and stole wallets. There were minor troubles among the Liverpool fans outside the Parc des Princes this afternoon, and thousands of extra police were very visible to control them. But for the lucky few who were able to get into the small arena, it was worth the long trip to Paris. Our sports correspondent, Tony Francis, was among those who went there to see Liverpool do it.
Liverpool decided to heap as much pressure as possible on Real's reserve goalkeeper Agustin. Alan Kennedy was first to test him. But the young keeper was very secure, as Kenny Dalglish soon discovered too. Liverpool's best effort so far came when Soames made a typical break from midfield, and it was so nearly decisive. Way they did it. Alan Kennedy's also a defender, but Dalglish would have been proud of this. It had collapsed, and as so often happens, Liverpool could have made it 3. The cleanest chance fell to McDermott, but Agustin, so unfortunate to be a loser tonight, worked wonders again.
Francis spoke to the Liverpool manager, Mr. Bob Paisley.
Very hard game. It might not have been a classic, but it was a hard game to win, and our lads showed tremendous character to come through with it.
One of the problems now must be, where do Liverpool go from here after so much success? What can you achieve next?
Oh, you just got to go on and try and pick something up. You know, we've had a terrible season this season, and we finished up with 2 trophies and that, but I think everybody was looking for the championship. But when you wait up, and we've had at least 12 players that's had over a month off, and that's a lot in a squad.
The main points of the news again. Mr. John Silkin, the 3rd man in the election for Labour's deputy leadership, got the approval of his constituency party in Deptford tonight. Lord Soames says he wants to meet the civil service strike leaders as soon as possible, and one of the IRA hunger strikers has given up his fast after 14 days. He has a perforated ulcer.
Finally, news that someone has accepted the invitation to attend the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer. Spike Milligan, one of the goons that Prince Charles admires, said in Australia he'll be there. He said Prince Charles must have thought, it's a big place, St Paul's. We've got to fill it. Milligan said he'd be representing the small town of Woy Woy in New South Wales, where his mother lives. He said, at Woy Woy, I'm the only one who's got a suit. And that's it tonight. Good night.
In a moment, the Thames News Headlines with Robin Houston, followed by the special programme, And Did Corruptly Receive?
Magic moments, eh? And there'll be plenty more at next year's World Cup. If you want to go, you'll need this brochure. Sports World Travel, the official tour organisers, have World Cup holidays for 12, 16 and 27 days with guaranteed match tickets, a choice of hotels and all travel. But tickets are limited, so don't delay. Ring 200 0200 now for your brochure.
Originally, Pliny the Roman discovered the waters at Spa. Descartes developed the idea, which quite restored Charles II. Louis Philippe travelled far to drink Spa. It even won over Wellington. And Mr. Disraeli was decidedly keen. Nowadays, pure Spa spring water from the Belgian Ardennes comes to you, still or sparkling. Original Spa.
You name me one example of British success and I'll buy the next round.
Well, excuse me. I couldn't help overhearing that. Would you mind stepping outside? Take this oil field.
Blimey, the car park's flooded.
It's the most successful in the North Sea. And it's British. Now get those jackets on, we're off to Alaska. Now that's the world's most ambitious pipeline. And it was pioneered by a British company.
Cheers.
Habeeb, we're going to the Valley. Hear that music? It is reproduced for millions using plastics developed by the same British company. Point me at?
Well, my round, isn't it?
It's so British, you may not have heard how successful it is.
Well, come on then, who is it?
BP. Britain at its best.
Salads. Are you making the most of your salad days?
Yeah, fine, good.
Manchester?
Yep. Wilson's Great Northern Bitter is on the way.
Right, lads. It's locked for the Queen Victoria down south. Right, Habeeb. Fire!
Yeah, hang on a minute. Can I order an extra one this week?
Wilson's, a Great Northern Bitter, specially imported from Manchester.
There is a British airline that carries over 3 million passengers, over 30 million miles a year. That airline is Dan Air, with more than a quarter of a century of experience in scheduled and charter services, with over 130 flights a day to major destinations in Europe and the UK, with low fares that offer you some great savings on scheduled flights. So fly Dan Air, and we'll fly you into the 80s.
Good evening. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Sir David McNee, tonight said the reputation of London's police wouldn't be damaged by the public inquiry into the Brixton riots. He warned that the only way to prevent similar or worse violence was for public opinion to be mobilised now against those responsible. In a speech to the Royal Society of Arts, he also admitted there are strong arguments for the introduction of new riot control equipment, but said he'd be sorry to see water cannon and rubber bullets used in London. Police evacuated several hundred people and sealed off the centre of Basildon in Essex this afternoon after a man snatched about £500 from a bank and left what he claimed was a bomb on a counter. The man told staff at the Trustee Savings Bank that his parcel was a time bomb due to explode within 5 minutes. Army bomb experts later found the package contained only rubbish. Researchers at a London hospital believe they're close to perfecting a process for the early detection of cancer. The techniques being developed at the Royal Marsden Hospital in Fulham involve the use of ultrasonic scanners and could mean regular checks for everyone for signs of cancer. London's historic Billingsgate Fish Market is up for sale. The owners, the City of London Corporation, hope it'll raise enough to finance the new market under construction on the Isle of Dogs and to retain the old buildings and transform them for productive use. Thames weather overnight mostly dry. Tomorrow dry early but more rain later. Top temperature 15 centigrade. That's 59 degrees Fahrenheit. That's it. More Thames News tomorrow lunchtime at 1:20. Now on Thames, tonight's documentary, And Did Corruptly Receive.
Once upon a time, Gerald Murphy was the political prince of Swansea.
Well, I'll challenge you if you do good.
I don't think... In 1976, Gerald Murphy was sentenced to 2 years' imprisonment for corruption.